The observation deck of the Zenith Dawn hummed with the gentle thrum of life support systems, a lullaby that had lulled Arya into an unintended nap. She had only meant to rest her eyes for a moment after her shift monitoring the ship's agricultural bay, but exhaustion had claimed her completely. Curled up on the cushioned bench beneath the viewport, she slept peacefully, unaware of the approaching chaos. The Kishara were apex predators from a world where mercy was a foreign concept and weakness meant death. Standing 7 feet tall with obsidian scales, retractable claws that could shred duraplast, and eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't imagine, they were the galaxy's most feared warrior race. Their reputation preceded them: cold, efficient, and utterly without sentiment, or so the databases claimed. What the databases failed to mention was how Kishara cubs behaved. Vrix was the first to discover the sleeping human. At only 3 cycles old, he was still small by Kishara standards, barely 4 feet tall, but already possessed the hunting instincts of his species. He had been exploring the observation deck, a forbidden territory his clutch mates had dared him to investigate, when he spotted the curious creature. Humans were rare on deep space vessels. Most species found them unsettling: their forward-facing eyes, their exposed skin, their bizarre pack-bonding tendencies that extended to literally anything. But Vrix had heard whispers from the adult Kishara. Humans were soft. Not weak, but physically soft in a way that defied their surprising durability. He crept closer, his scales shifting to match the ambient lighting, a natural camouflage response. The human Arya, according to her name badge, lay on her side, one arm tucked beneath her head, breathing slowly and steadily. Vrix tilted his head, curiosity overwhelming caution. Carefully, testing each movement, he climbed onto the bench. His claws, still developing, clicked softly against the metal frame. Arya didn't stir. Emboldened, Vrix placed one clawed hand on her shoulder. Warm, soft, fascinating, he climbed higher, settling himself directly on top of her torso, his weight distributed across her midsection. Still, the human slept. Behind him, the door hissed open. 3 more cubs tumbled in Vrix's clutchmates, unable to resist following him into Forbidden's territory. They froze when they saw him perched atop the human. "What are you doing?" hissed Kira, the smallest of the group, her scales rippling with nervous energy. "She's soft," Vrix whispered back, his tail coiling with delight. Like the thermal bedding in the nursery, but alive. That was all the invitation the others needed. Kira approached first, then Zeth, and finally Rax, the largest of the cubs. One by one, they climbed onto the bench and began stacking themselves on top of Arya. Kira settled on her legs. Zeth draped himself across her shoulders, and Rax, in a display of terrible judgment, positioned himself directly on her head. The combined weight was substantial. 4 Kishara cubs, even young ones, amounted to nearly 200 pounds of scale, muscle, and pure reptilian curiosity. Arya's eyes snapped open. For a moment, she simply lay there, her brain struggling to process the situation. She couldn't move her arms. She couldn't move her legs. Something heavy and warm was covering her entire body, and something was definitely sitting on her face. She attempted to speak, but Rax's tail was covering her mouth. The cubs froze, their instincts screaming at them that the prey had awakened. But Arya did something unexpected. She didn't thrash or scream. Instead, she went completely still, her breathing deliberate and controlled despite the weight crushing down on her. "Vrix," she managed to mumble through Rax's tail, her voice muffled but somehow calm. "Is that you?" Vrix's scales flushed orange, the Kishara equivalent of being caught with one's hand in the cookie jar. "Human Arya is awake," he announced unnecessarily. "I noticed," Arya replied, still pinned. "How many of you are there?" 4, Kira volunteered helpfully, her voice small and uncertain. Arya took a slow breath, or as much of one as she could manage with several small predators using her as a mattress. This was, she reflected, perhaps the strangest situation she had encountered in 5 years of deep space service. She had survived a catastrophic engine failure, negotiated trade agreements with species that considered humans a delicacy, and once jury-rigged a life support system using nothing but duct tape and stubborn determination. But this was new. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to count to 3, and you're all going to climb off me very carefully. Can you do that? What if we don't? Rax asked, the challenge instinctive. Arya somehow managed to smile despite her predicament. Then I'll have to explain to your clutch mother why her cubs were found in a restricted area during rest cycle. And I have a feeling she have questions about why you thought stacking on top of a human was a good survival strategy. The cubs exchanged glances, their scales shifting through various colors of concern. Clutch Mother Sarah was formidable even by Kashara standards, and the thought of her disappointment was more terrifying than any threat Arya could make. 1, Arya began. Rax scrambled off her head. 2, Zeth and Kira climbed down, their movements now quick and uncertain. 3, Vrix, the last holdout, finally slid off her torso and onto the floor. Arya sat up slowly, wincing as blood flow returned to compressed limbs. She rotated her shoulders and stretched her neck, assessing the damage. Bruised, certainly. Possibly going to have some interesting scale pattern imprints on her skin, but otherwise intact. The 4 cubs clustered together, staring at her with eyes that reflected the viewport's starlight. They looked, Arya realized, terrified. Not of her, exactly, but of the consequences they now faced. Why didn't you attack us? Vrix asked suddenly, his voice small. We are predators, you are prey. The teaching algorithms say prey always fights. Arya considered the question seriously. Because you're children, she said finally. And you weren't actually hunting me. You were just curious. She paused, then added with a slight smile. And maybe a little bit because I know what it's like to be a kid who explores where they shouldn't. She stood, joints popping, and looked down at the 4 young Kishara. They were, despite their fearsome heritage, just children acting on instinct and curiosity. And wasn't that the most human thing to see past the scales and claws to the beings underneath? Come on, Arya said, gesturing toward the door. I'll walk you back to the nursery before your clutch mother realizes you're missing. But you have to promise me something. What? All 4 cubs asked simultaneously. Next time you want to test if humans are soft, just ask. My ribs would appreciate it. As they walked through the corridors, 4 small predators trailing behind 1 very patient human, Arya reflected on the absurdity of it all. Humanity had conquered the stars not through superior firepower or advanced technology alone, but through an inexplicable ability to remain calm when covered in alien children. It wasn't the survival trait the galaxy expected, but it was undeniably effective.